Well, hello again. In this section, we are going to talk about vital signs and progress notes and how we're going to put those into Matrix. So right now we're looking at our residence face sheet, Mr. Santa Claus. And to get to those, again, we're going to come up here to this resident tab that's orange. And if I click on it, like I said earlier, this is kind of like a file cabinet for our resident. So anything that we need to find pertaining to them more than likely can be found in here. We're going to come all the way to the bottom and we're going to click on vitals. So right now in the training database, this says vitals taken during the last 90 days. In your live database, this will be the last 30 days worth of vitals. And right now it says that there are no vitals recorded for this resident during the last 90 days. So if we're going to be adding vitals, what button do you think we're going to click on to get there? That is correct. We're going to click on Add Vitals. So looking at our vital screen, we have a lot of options to choose from, and I'm going to break this down for you. We have one section called vital signs. We have another section called intakes, and a third section called outputs. Now, vital signs, these are your typical vital signs: your temperature, pulse, respirations, blood pressure, O2 sats. Disregard blood sugar. We're never going to use that in this section. Weight and height. Below that, we have our intakes. So we have our breakfast, our AM snack, lunch, PM snack, dinner, bedtime snack, supplements, fluids. And then below that, our outputs, urine, emesis, and bowel movement. So our intakes and our outputs, the majority of those are going to be put in through the point of care system. Whether it's the nurse putting those in or the CNAs that are documenting intakes and outputs, all of those are set up to be answered through point of care. But if you needed to add them through vital signs, this is where you would find them. We are going to leave those alone for now. And we're going to discuss those in the point of care training. And we're just going to focus on this top section. So if I were to enter a full set of vitals on this resident, so let's say temperature, pulse, respirations, blood pressure, O2 sats, height, and weight. So I'm going to put all these in for the resident. I just check the box next to each one of those. And I'm going to come down here to the bottom. And I'm going to click Next. Right now it's asking me for a temperature. So if I look, each one of these vital signs is separated by this black bar. So if I look down just a little bit, the next one is pulse. I see that right here. So looking within this one vital, I have a few things to play with here. First thing it's asking, was the vital taken, yes or no? Yes, it was. What was my temperature? We'll say 98.6. It wants to know the route. Notice that route is bold, so it means we have to answer this. So on the route, we'll go ahead and say oral. Now we have this associate to events and associate to observations. Neither one is bold, so it's not required. And I will actually get to the importance of these and how we use them once we get into the event and observation training. Right here at the bottom, date and time taken. So we want to make sure that this is the date of admission. Resident was in at 9:30 a.m., so we'll say these were taken around 9:40. Now, I know that below, all the other vital signs are going to be set with the same date and time that we just had showing here. To change it quickly for all of them, we have this little blue hyperlink over here to the right that says Apply to All Vitals. So if I just click that, and let's watch right now. Date and time, there we go. And if I say Apply to All Vitals, it now changed on us down here at the bottom. So it's a quick way to change all your vitals to match with the time that you took them. So pulse, we'll say 88. Location, activity, describe, none of these are required. So you could answer them if you wanted to, but we are not required to answer those. Respirations, again, activity, type, and describe, not required, but are available. Blood pressure broken down by systolic and diastolic. Position, activity, location, device, again, just like the ones up above. Our O2 saturations. Activity, location, oxygen use. This one is not bold. But it's very important. If our resident is on oxygen, this is where we need to say that they're on oxygen. So we could say yes, and it wants to know the liter flow, or this answer could be no. Our weight, Santa Claus, he's a good 385. And below that, type, and this one is required. So it wants to know if it's routine, admission, or baseline. We don't use baseline as an option. We can't get rid of it, but just disregard it. So we'll say that this, we could pick routine or admission. Say it was the admission weight. And Santa's height, say 5 feet 9 inches. And at this point, I've answered all my vitals. I will say save. And now here are all the vital signs that I just put in. So it has the date and the time that the vital was put in. It has what the vital was, who took it, and then over here to the right we have view next to each one of these. The reason we have view is because we can go back and we can edit one of these if we did it incorrectly, or if we put it in for the wrong person, we can mark it invalid. So we have a couple options to choose from when it comes to these vitals. So let's say that this O2 saturation was incorrect. To fix that, I would come over here to the right to where it says view, and I will click on view that corresponds in the same row with O2 saturation. Once I do that, I have a few options. I can go back to the page I was just on. I can mark it invalid if this was entered for the wrong resident, or I could edit it to change the information that I put into it. So I'm going to click edit. And right now it wants to know a correction reason. So the reason, I would just say incorrect data. O2 sat, we'll say that it was at 100%. It kept my date and my time of my original vital that I put in. I'll click save, and now the vital has changed to 100%. If I look down here at the bottom, everything we do in Matrix will keep a history. So you can't ever just delete something and it be completely gone. There's always a record of it being in the system. So down here it tells me what my vital was originally. Here's my 98%, and it would say who took it. And up here, now that I changed it, if I were somebody different, my name would be on this vital sign now rather than the person who entered the original vital. But let's say altogether we put this in for the wrong resident. So to mark this invalid, what we are going to do is come down here and just click mark invalid. And wants to know the invalidation reason, I could say wrong resident. And there's room for a note for you to type, but by selecting wrong resident, we pretty much said everything we need to say. If you felt like you needed to explain yourself further, you could type something in here, but it is not required. After picking wrong resident, I come down here at the bottom and I'm going to click mark invalid. So now that one is invalidated, and if I click on back to go back to my vital signs, we'll notice that it didn't disappear, but it is now very light gray. It says invalid right there. And it's not showing up the same way that the other ones are. As far as looking for vitals, pretty cool. You can come down here to the bottom, and there is search vitals. There's most recent vital signs, and then configure resident alert values. You do not have access to this one right here. This is where we set up company-wide our out of range parameters for vital signs. Over here on the far left, we're going to go back to search vitals. So if I click search vitals, what I can do here is I could just look at, let's say, the temperatures for this resident that were recorded, and come down here and select my start date and my end date and look at a very specific time frame for a very specific vital. So it would eliminate everything else out of that search field. It would just show me the temperatures that were recorded in this time frame. If I click search, there's my one temperature that I put in. If I want to go back, right here it says vitals home. I click on that, and I'm back to my main screen. So that's a good tool to use if you need to go back and you need to research something on a resident, or you want to pull just very specific information related to the vitals. Those also include the intakes and the outputs. So you could just run that vitals report right down here, the search vitals, select the ones that you want, and it will make your job a lot easier. Now we are going to talk about progress notes. Again, we're back here on the face sheet. To access the progress notes, we're going to go to the same place that we went to for vital signs. So we're going to click on the resident tab. And if we look down in here, again, it's in alphabetical order. We find progress notes right here towards the bottom. Click on progress notes. And now this screen looks a lot like the vital screen when we first got started. Because there's no notes that have been added, it tells us there were no progress notes were recorded in the requested period. So what this is showing us right now is the 20 most recent progress notes. Now, this is not just nursing notes. We have IDT, we have dietary, social services. A lot of people are involved in the documentation for these residents. Everyone documents their notes through progress notes. So, in a real situation, you have a resident that's been in the building for, say, a week, that 20 most recent is going to fill up real quick. So, to add progress notes to this, we're going to come over here and we're going to click Add Note. Date and the time. I'll go back to the 6th on the admission day. When I do that, it tells me the page says, backdating the progress note marks it as a late entry. Click OK to continue or cancel to restore the date. All right, so I'm going to say OK to continue because this brings up a very important point. If you have to write a progress note and you're talking about something that already happened, maybe the day before, and you come in here to backdate it, we have to make sure that this date reflects when that note was actually written. And when you do that, it will automatically, in the system, count it as a late entry. Because I'm going back more than midnight from the previous day. So if I go back to 11/6, it gives me that message. I'll say 9:45 a.m. The discipline that it's asking me for, if you are a charge nurse working the floor, more than likely, this will automatically default to nursing for you, and you don't have another option to choose. I have a lot of options because I'm logged in as a clinical user right now. But if we see, we could write an IDT note. Activities is up there. There's dietary. If I scroll down, social services. So there are a lot of different options in here to choose from for me. Yours, like I said, will offset to nursing. If you're part of the IDT team, then you will have the option to choose between IDT and nursing. So progress note, this is not a lesson on how to write nurses notes, so I'm going to make this as quickly and as painless as possible for this training. Again, we have associated to events and observations, which I will cover in the next training session. If I'm done with the note, so if I'm done with it, I'm just going to click Save. But let's say that you're sitting at the nurse's station, you're in the middle of writing a note, something happens where you have to leave the nurse's station to go attend to a resident or a situation. You can save what you have done, and then once you are ready to come back and sit down, you can open up this note back up, and you can continue documenting and finish your note. In Matrix, the author of the note, the original author, is the only person that can edit and add to or take away from the note that they put in the system. So Nurse A cannot go in and edit a progress note that Nurse B put in the system. So if you needed to, I would save it. I would walk away, take care of whatever. I would log off of the computer. When I come back, I would log back on, find this note, edit it, and finish it. For this one, we're good. I'm going to come down, I'm going to click Save. Notice that what it did was it told me recorded as a late entry on 11/9/2015 at 10:21 a.m. So it tells on me that I did it late, and it tells me when I wrote it. But if you look over here at the date and time, it says that it was 11/6 at 9:45 a.m. So let's say I'm going to add another note. And on this one, I'm going to pick IDT. I'll save it. We'll add a third one. So we'll say add note. On this one, we'll pick social services. Come down to the bottom, click Save. So now, if we look at the list of notes, and this 20 most recent is filling up, we've got discipline-wise, we've got social services, we have IDT, and we have nursing. So if you were coming in here and you wanted to just look at certain types of notes, we could do that, just like we did with the vital signs. I would come down here to the bottom on Search Progress Notes. I could click Search Progress Notes. I could set my start date and my end date. And if I want to just look at, say, nursing, then all these boxes are currently checked. The quick way to get rid of them, over here it says Clear All. So if I just picked nursing and then I clicked Search, well, then it removed everything for me but those nursing notes on those exact dates. This list in a real situation would be much more lengthy, and if I needed to, I could click Report, and it would bring me up a PDF that I could print, and it would have all of those notes that I was looking for. Now, as far as the 20 most recent goes, if I wanted to, on the discipline options right here above it, there's a little plus sign. If I expand that, right now I'm looking at everything. So if I cleared that and I just wanted to look at the 20 most recent IDT notes, I would just check the box for IDT, click Search, and again, my 20 most recent IDTs, there's only one of them, and that is how you would find that. I'm going to check all and click Search just to bring back all the notes. So let's say that this note needed fixed, or that it was put on the wrong person. All right, we'll go with this IDT note. I could come in here, over here to View, just like we did on the vital signs. Click View. I have my option to go backwards to the previous page. I can mark this invalid completely, edit the note, or I could print the note, which is Report. If I clicked Edit, it wants to know a reason. I could say more data available. Save it if need be. Or if it was for the wrong resident altogether, we have the option of Mark Invalid. I would click Mark Invalid. My invalidation reason could be wrong resident. And then click Mark Invalid. Now if I go back right here, just like that vital sign, it says that it's invalid. It's a very light gray, but it does not disappear. So when doing progress notes, keep in mind that in the next session, we're going to talk about events and observations. And in those are our forms that we had on paper forever, and we have now switched them over to electronic forms. So the observations are a lot of your assessment. The events are a lot of your hot charting. Keep in mind that if we're talking about something that is a hot charting item, or if it's an assessment that needs to be done on a resident, we're going to go to the event and the observation first before we write a progress note related to that. Reason for that is because each one of those events and observations, they're forms and they're questionnaires. So by the time you answer all the questions that we want to know, you have pretty much said everything that you need to say about that resident for that occurrence, thus negating the need to write a progress note in some cases. So always check with those first before you write a long progress note. Also, something to keep in mind, we do not add vital signs into our progress notes. If you do that, you're going to be creating double the work, because you're going to have to turn around and add those into vital signs like we just did. So now you have them in two places. And we don't want them in two places, because what you have typed out in a progress note, you might have had an error, and now it does not match what you put into the vital signs. So keep your vital signs out of the progress notes, and make sure to always record those under the vitals.